I figure I'll take a break from watching Leafs Lunch with Andy Petrillo to talk to you fine people. And that's saying something because Andy Petrillo is a lovely human being, and if she ever wants to interview me, I'm available. That's not going to happen. So, I guess if I had a chance to interview her, that's also not going to happen. And I realize she aggravates people, but I actually think beyond, is she a Leafs fangirl? Of course. Do I think she's unbiased? Sure. Where am I going with this? I'm going to talk about the Ducks. How does that sound, guys? You like that? Thought you would. So, I am well known and outspoken for my dislike of the Ducks. And my dislike of the Ducks is basically through four guys. I've never been a fan of Ryan Getzlaf. Just not. And I know I'm in the minority, and I know that throws people off, but I'm not a Getzlaf fan. Probably because he's friends with this guy. I like Corey Perry. And I couldn't come up with another winger that I didn't like, so I figured, Kessler. I was going to come up with a line that I didn't like. And I was going to come up with two defensemen I didn't like, but I could only come up with one. This is throughout the history of the team. So if anybody's like, well, wait a minute, Pronger's not on the team. I went through the team's history. I went through a hockey reference site, went through every player who's ever played for the Ducks, and those are the four I don't like. Couldn't come up with another defenseman. Couldn't come up with a goalie either. But players that I liked. So my all-time favorite Ducks. Teemu. Because who doesn't like Teemu Selanne? I don't think there's anybody who doesn't like Teemu Selanne. Maybe members of the Ottawa Senators that lost to him, but even them, I don't think they dislike Selanne. They just didn't like losing in the final. Paul Kariya, who was on the opposite wing. There's not enough things that I can say about Paul Kariya and the way that he played the game clean. He played the game with speed and skill, and anybody who's too young to remember him in his prime, I'm sorry. You missed a fantastic defenseman. Just fantastic. Fantastic forward in his prime. There was nobody like him. And my favorite center, and I went through over and over again, my favorite center ever was Andy McDonald. Andy McDonald was underpaid and underrated. Then he was overpaid and overrated. And then he got hurt. And his career was done. That's Andy McDonald in a nutshell. But I'm telling you, I always liked this kid. And I still say kid even though he's retired. I always liked his game. So even before he was top two centers, I would watch Ducks games and be like, I don't know why they're not giving that McDonald more time. I don't know why they're not giving that McDonald guy more of a chance. Because he is and was one of the most talented players in terms of passing. He was a smart player, and I liked him a lot. Defenseman. Well, there's a current Duck that's one of my two favorite defensemen in the team's history, and that's Cam Fowler. Early this past season, 16-17, there was a lot of speculation Fowler was going to get moved out. Oh, they're going to move Fowler out. Cap reasons, expansion reasons. They got to move Fowler. Notice that died during the season. The Ducks very quickly learned that Fowler was their best offensive power play point man. They could not afford to lose him, and they're right. And when there was talk of trading Fowler, I'm like, why? He's really good. It's like, well, he's got a lot of market value. Yeah, because you can't replace him. And the other defenseman, I may not have liked the 2007 Ducks. I may have hated seeing them win a Stanley Cup. But damn it, Scott Niedermayer, one of the all-time greats on the blue line, Hall of Fame, and it's not a coincidence that there's 3 Hall of Famers on my favorite Ducks list. The Ducks had a lot of truculence, as Brian Burke would call it, when they won that Stanley Cup, but they also had a lot of skill. They had some very skilled players, which is part of the reason that guys like Pronger and Kessler aggravate me. They have a ton of skill. Or in Pronger's case, had a ton of skill when he played in the NHL. They don't need to do these things. You know, Pronger didn't need to run Holmstrom face first into the boards. Well, he was already tied up with somebody else. Pronger didn't need to submarine guys. Kessler doesn't need to fake injuries to try to draw penalties. Perry doesn't need to do all the stick work that he does. They're all talented players. It's very frustrating to watch a guy who's really, really talented resorting to those tactics and those shortcuts. Now, in terms of my favorite goaltender, J.S. Giguère. Giguère's easily my favorite goaltender in Anaheim history. I looked over all the goals. Oh, sorry about that. I looked over all the goaltenders who've played in Anaheim, and Giguère was my favorite. And it's funny because I did a video not that long ago where I talked about goaltenders and their equipment being oversized, and I mentioned Giguère specifically, and some Ducks fans took that, I think, probably the wrong way. Giguère was an excellent goaltender. There was no rules regarding the pads at the time, nothing restrictive, and he took advantage. He wasn't the only one. Gar Snow was doing it. There are plenty of other goaltenders who were doing it. And it doesn't change the fact that he was a very good goaltender. J.S. Giguère, wherever he played, he always seemed to have a professionalism and a personality that he always seemed to be very popular with his teammates. Good guy. And he won a Conn Smythe in 2003, even though the Ducks lost the final that year. And then he won the Stanley Cup in 2007. And the only other goaltender I can remember losing in the Stanley Cup final and getting a Conn Smythe was Ron Hextall in 87. That's hard. It is really hard to lose the Stanley Cup final and for the NHL to say, all right, but the guy who's the most valuable player in this final is this guy. The one who just lost. Most valuable player, it's not even close. And in Giguère's case in 2003, it wasn't even close. And 2007, pretty damn good year for him. And, the size of the pads, did it keep his goals against lower? Yep. Did it raise his save percentage? Sure. Does it change the fact that he was a premier goalie in the NHL? Not in my eyes. Not in my eyes. And yeah, I'm aware Tugnut played there for like 28 games. I could have Tugnut on half of these all hockey guy teams, but as much as I like Tugnut, I'm not going to try to do that. So if you're a Ducks fan, there you go. I have not always disliked the Ducks. And people ask every now and then, they say, well, so when Perry and Kessler are gone, you won't hate the Ducks as much? No. My cheering for or against a team, there are certain factors, and in the Ducks case, it's simply who's on the team. How do they play? And if a team, in my eyes, plays over that line, they cross the line from being rough to just being dirty, or they have key players who I just don't like their game, they'll be on that dislike list. Or the Montreal. Those are the rules. And I wish I was kidding about the Montreal thing, but it's just I will never cheer for Montreal for the same reason that most Montreal fans will never cheer for Boston. So there's that. But think about it. So this is the team that I dislike the most, and I could only come up with 4 players throughout their history that I would write in red marker and say, yeah, I didn't like these guys. And in Pronger's name, I'm probably going to be able to use this card again, I think 3 more times? Probably. He'll show up again. He will. But for now, that's my Ducks list. You guys can let me know your favorites and least favorites. And, yeah. Did this give me an excuse to wear the orange Ducks jersey again? Yeah. But, so, maybe I like wearing the orange Ducks jersey. Did you ever think of that? So, yeah, let me know what you guys think. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys again soon.